Hello everyone, today I'm going to be reacting to Asmongold, reacting to some Age of Empires drama. Now listen, I know this is like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to content creation. Already like react content's pretty bad, but reacting to a reaction, that is a new low. But listen, I figured I'd make an exception because someone sent me this video from Asmongold, it's a really big creator, and it had 750,000 views within 20 hours, and it's covering a situation that's being talked about all over the Age of Empires social media over the last day. So it's mostly an AoE4 situation, but it's leaked over to AoE2 because the person at the center of it, Killer Pigeon, hosted an Age of Empires 2 LAN event, the Garrison, last year, and actually met him there. And so a lot of people are giving their opinions, a lot of people are talking about it. And so someone sent me this video, which I don't know how he even found it. The video title has nothing to do with Age of Empires. The thumbnail, nothing like Age of Empires. I don't know how you're supposed to find these videos, but I guess that the title should capture your attention. This is so stupid, it demands my full attention. Now, going to this, I just want to say I watched 30 seconds of the video. I realized there's some information missing. Then I have to go play a tournament set against Mr. Yo, and I have to come back. And I brought the rest of the information just to present it clearly from my perspective. I just want to say I don't really have any stake in the horse. I've met Killer Pigeon. I know about Asmongold, but I don't watch Asmongold, and I don't know Killer Pigeon in some kind of like crazy in-depth way. I just know him surface level. And so I'm just gonna see what is being said, see what's going on, and then give you guys my perspective on it, both on Asmongold's commentary and also on the situation itself. Be warned, the joke is very vulgar, and Asmongold's commentary tends to have a lot of swear words in it, so just be wary that this is not a video suitable for kids. But with all that said, let's go ahead and hop right in.
So stupid, I'm gonna look at it. Can we please get Asmongold to cover this drama? I know Age of Empires has a special place in his heart. So, oh my god. During a highest paid person in Age of Empire esports, a beloved caster in Age of Empires, hosted by Red Bull, who runs his own weekly World's Edge tournament, has been shut down, facing investigation and a potential dismissal from all aspects of Age of Empires. During a Red Bull sponsored event, when production hosted by these people, Killer Pigeon posted a "your mom" joke in Twitch chat aimed at his friend. It was the 20 centimeters I'm lacking in height I can use in your mom.
Yeah, so this is where I just want to give a little bit of extra context. I think it was missed in the video, but he said a couple more things in that. He says, guys, chill. I donated a kidney to her. And he tags him, only fair after I. Not even worth reading that out. But I do want to bring the full context there. Again, not to pile on Killer Pigeon. Again, I just want to bring the information to the table so you guys can understand where the reaction is coming from. Now, this is where I was at, so we'll continue from here fresh.
Okay. Killer Pigeon has been mostly radio silent since the incident. Okay, it's been quiet here, hoping to have an update. It doesn't feel good. Sorry to have debated you on this. I'll know later. Sorry for the radio silence. It's degrading to women. Very bad look for the community. If it's said to a doctor to a patient, I'd immediately lose my job. You're not a doctor. Yeah, without questioning or giving me a second chance. I'm very surprised by KP trying to play this off like it's nothing. Dark humor or borderline humor like this should be kept private, not in public, especially by people that are well known in the community. I think anyone would lose his job for such comments. I think a statement is not enough. There has to be a clear sign that EGC is not tolerating such tragic behavior. Microsoft is sponsoring KPMM. Red Bull is probably having him as a commentator. I wonder what would happen if the companies knew about this. This kind of behavior is not expected from anyone. We are investigating this matter and will provide a statement as fast as possible.
Okay, so there's a few moving parts here, but basically, so he wrote this in a chat of EGC TV, which is like the main host of Age of Empires 4 tournaments, and this particular tournament was hosted by Red Bull and sponsored by Microsoft. And Killer Pigeon was I think he was hired to be like the host of the event in person, okay? And people are calling for him to lose his job here over his comments. I actually think he did lose his job. Now, here's my take right off the bat before I hear anything more here. So about the situation, we'll talk about Asmongold's commentary later, but about the situation itself, my perspective is what he said was inappropriate. It's horrible. It's very vulgar. It's not suitable for any kind of professional environment whatsoever, especially not an environment where you are yourself working in. Like, even in just putting this in a public place when you're a public figure is bad enough if you care about what people are thinking about you. But then in a professional setting, that's even worse because you're being hired to do a job and to represent the community. So saying those kind of things, I think that's just a bad thing. I think it's unprofessional. All right. But here's the thing: people calling for him to lose his job. I'm not sure if I can go to that stretch. I'll tell you guys why. First of all, I'm not really for cancel culture. I don't like that some guy makes a mistake and then he's just like taken down, 100%. He's canceled. He can't do anything. No one, no one watch him. No one give him any jobs. He's done. Like, get him out of our community. I don't really like that. I'll tell you guys why. So I think that people should be given a chance to correct their mistakes. I think everybody makes mistakes. If you make your mistake in public, it's worse because people can see it, but it's no different than doing a mistake in private. And I think if you make a mistake in public and you get called out for it, you should be given a chance to apologize and correct your behavior, and then continue to be instated in events if you are being hired to be a good, a host, and you are a good host. If that's true, then he should, keep his job, because I wouldn't make that jump for a joke to losing his job. And another reason that I think this way is because making a joke is not something that has a tangible consequence, something that you can measure. For example, if you commit a crime, if you steal, let's say you steal $1,000, that's tangible. You can understand what $1,000 is. You can understand that stealing it has caused this amount of harm. You can come up with a punishment that's suitable to that amount of harm. That makes sense. But when it comes to something like a joke on the internet, there are consequences to it. Like, people might be turned off from the event. People might not watch the event because of that joke and because this person is, representing the event. But it's really hard to understand just how much of an impact that is. So giving a punishment or punishing a person for a mistake that you can't tangibly measure feels a little unfair. And I would be of the opinion that losing his job is way more severe than the joke that he made, despite me thinking that it's a bad joke, it's unprofessional, and it's vulgar. So that's my initial, perspective on the situation. I understand what they're saying. If it's a doctor making that joke, he would lose his job. I personally think, though, that at the same time, IRL interactions, like real world interactions, are different than internet. I don't think there are no rules on the internet, but I think that it's a different situation, and that should be addressed. Let's not make false comparisons just because we want to try to make a point here.
A community of virtue signalers publicly ganging up on a guy to make him lose his job is more appealing than a community where one dares to make an inappropriate joke. I support KP on this. There's nothing disrespectful. It's just an internet joke. His profession is not a doctor, nothing worse than entertainment. Oh my fucking God. This is a PR nightmare? Let me give you guys some advice. Okay? I'm going to give you some advice. PR is just another euphemism for a bunch of fat, lonely, ugly women complaining on the internet.
That's a concern.
Nobody gives a fuck about PR. PR is not real. It's just a bunch of fat retards getting mad.
Damn.
That's the truth. It's a bunch of HR Karens trying to henpeck and tone police you. Say whatever the fuck I want. Hang out with whoever the fuck I want and do whatever the fuck I want. And if you want to cry about it, go ahead. Nobody cares about you. You don't matter.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that at all. In fact, I know for sure that I don't agree with that. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's the other extreme, right? Like, one extreme was having him lose his job, and now this is the other extreme of, no, you can say whatever you want. I don't agree with that, because there has to be a limit. You can't just say whatever you want. Like, can you incite violence online? All of a sudden, it's like, no, you can't do that, because, people might, do violent things because you're inciting violence. But then this guy might just say, no, you can say anything you want. And I think that's like opening up a can of worms that is impossible to close. I don't think you can say whatever you want on the internet with no consequences. There has to be, obviously you can if you're like an anonymous person, but if I'm hiring someone for a job and then the guy is saying things that are completely out of line with my values, I would not want to work with that person again. That's just like a standard procedure, right? Now, it's not that, he makes one mistake and then he's cut, but if he repeatedly says things that don't align with my values, I would 100% not want to work with that person. So I don't think you can say whatever you want on the internet. I don't think that it's just the HR Karens or whatnot. I think that people can genuinely be, disgusted by some comments. I think people can genuinely say that it's unprofessional. Like, my perspective is that it's unprofessional. Yeah, sure, some women can say that it's degrading to women. It is very disrespectful to say those kind of things, and especially in the context of it being a public chat. If you're bantering with a friend and it's understood that it's banter, that's one thing. But if it's in a public chat, people perceive things, the same word, the same sentence, people can perceive it in many different ways. And there's another thing that's not talked about, but if you allow things, if you allow a person that's being involved in an event to say whatever he wants, let me tell you something about streaming. Let me give you some advice now, and I hope you take mine more so than Asmongold's here, in this position at least. If you're a streamer and you allow certain things to happen in the chats, or you have people associated with your event that say certain things in chat, the other viewers will take what they said and they're going to say things in the same tone, and worse, they'll take it to the extreme. If you allow him to say these jokes mocking, your mom jokes or whatever, very vulgar, very sexual jokes, they're going to take it to the next level. It's going to be all kinds of sexual jokes, all kind of woman degradation jokes, everything you can think of will be opened up because this is the kind of things that you're allowing in the chat. And it's a really snowbally effect where one person says one thing, the next person says something even worse, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. And before you know it, you have a situation where the chat is unbelievably toxic. It's horrible to be around. The average person does not want to get involved, and you only have like your small amount of regulars that are okay being in this toxic environment. And that's horrible for some kind of big event or some kind of big brand. So I don't think you can say whatever you want on the internet. I don't think it's just Karens complaining. I think that it's a genuine concern if you have a host saying things that are inappropriate and unprofessional. And I don't think you can allow everything to fly, especially if you're a company trying to host an event. Let's see. Let's watch more.
Anybody that puts up with this type of bullshit deserves it. Never capitulate, never rationalize. PR doesn't exist, and the people that care about it aren't real.
Never rationalize. Like, don't be rational. But this is crazy that he's saying never apologize and whatnot, because I believe he also made some comments like a year ago, and he was forced to backtrack and take a week off streaming for it. I didn't follow the situation too closely, but even he had to compromise in that situation. There's no such thing as don't compromise, because if you're going to lose job opportunities, you're going to be like completely outcast from a community, you can say like, oh no, I'm going to ignore it, I'm going to double down, but then no one's going to watch you anyway. Like if what you're saying, here's the thing, if you're in the wrong and you get called out and you double down, then people just genuinely won't want to associate with you, won't want to work with you, won't want to watch you. The only way that this advice from him makes sense is if he genuinely believes he's in the right. Like if Killer Pigeon genuinely believes that what he said was completely fine and he would do it again, then okay, sure, don't compromise, don't apologize, because that's who you are. I personally just don't think that, aggressive banter makes up the entirety of a person. So I would think that going through the route of like, listen, that was unprofessional, I apologize, I'll do better, is a much better way to actually maintain his presence in the scene rather than, trying to double down or anything like that.
They're NPCs. Why would you base your decisions and allow yourself to be controlled by an NPC? I like not mattering. Exactly. Never go in. Like that's the reason. Like they always say, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that." Absolutely not. These people are literally totally irrelevant. And the way that I know that is all the time that people get like canceled, it never actually affects them. And I think that really there needs to be more people realizing that the streamers and creators that are PR friendly are actually just total fake losers that just pretend to act that way so they can get the approval from these HR henpeckers. That's the reason why.
Okay, he said a couple of things there. So the first thing he said was about the last thing he said was about being fake and faking the PR thing. Okay, of course that's bad. If you're just like faking your personality, and people do this, it's a pretty good point on his end. If you fake something like a fake personality and then in real life you're completely different, then that's not really a good solution, because I think that doesn't really have personal growth, like real personal growth. It's probably still better from a brand's perspective, to have someone that just acts professional, even if they're unprofessional or like extremely vulgar in person. Even if you just hide that and you just, for the sake of the event, you don't show that in public, I think that's still better than showing it, because here's the thing. Having vulgar jokes as part of your personality is not the entirety of your personality. That's not who you are. So it's not fake to just like not, to not make those jokes in a professional environment. Now, of course, if you are faking your entire personality and you're doing things for the camera and then off camera you're a different person, that's horrible. That's horrible. And if I caught someone doing that, I would never interact with that person, because that's a dangerous person. Someone who's faking their personality to look one way but acts a different way, that's a dangerous person. I would never want to get involved with that kind of person. But when it comes to just making vulgar jokes, that's not the entirety of your personality. I think you can make vulgar jokes if you want in your private, in your group of friends, for example. That's one thing. But then if you just don't do that in a professional environment, that's not you being fake. That's just you being professional in a professional environment, right? Another thing he said is that, people that get canceled, it doesn't affect them. In this case, though, Killer Pigeon is not being canceled in the sense that like people are not watching his stream. He's not really much of a streamer himself, as he is like a caster and a host that gets hired for events. And for Red Bull, the Red Bull's paying him a salary to come represent them for the event. So if Red Bull thinks that Killer Pigeon's comments will turn people off from the event and they don't want to pay him that salary anymore to hire him for that hosting job, then that's within Red Bull's right to do that. Personally, I don't think that very many people will be turned off from watching an A before Red Bull because of comments that the host made. I think the host is a secondary role. So I don't think this is as consequential as people might think it would be. So that's why I'm of the opinion that he should just apologize, still be allowed to keep his job, and just try to act professional going forward. An opportunity for growth for him, and Red Bull still keeps him as a host, because if he's a good host, then he's a good host regardless of these jokes, right? And that's what they're paying him to be at the end of the day. So address those 2 points.
That's it. What a soy group. I think that with a lot of these people, PR people watch the news. Yeah, absolutely. And again, you can't get canceled unless you voluntarily stop. Well, I think that it's important to make these people realize how much of a minority they are. It really is. Bella Clear's personal conflict. Let me read the rest of these here. We're currently investigating the issue. In the meantime, don't use EGC as public execution site. Okay, that's fine. Address the situation alone. Can IP check for all I care? So, dad jokes have sexual innuendo. Are they objectifying men? How is it dehumanizing women? If it was addressed to an individual, not all women, you do the generalization yourself. And then this is Age of Empires 4. Killer Pigeon was streaming on Thursday. Probably be my last Age of Empires 4 stream. I beg of Asmongold to bring it.
So, I mean, hold on. Let me just address that. A comment, even if addressed to an individual, can still be a generalization, right? It can still be degrading to a certain person. Like if I comment to someone else and I say, and I make a generalization, or I make a comment, it absolutely can be taken as something that is, a general thing. Because it's what I said earlier. One sentence can be taken all kinds of different ways because of the person reading it. So if somebody sees a comment like that, they might have the perception that Killer Pigeon will, thinks that, or, thinks about women in a lesser way, for example. It could come off as misogynistic, absolutely. Now, having known Killer Pigeon, I think he's got like a, wife and kids. I've spoken to him a little bit. He actually sent a really nice message to my wife, who was undergoing cancer removal surgery last year. Very heartfelt message, very genuine message. So I know him. I know he's not that kind of guy. And this is why I personally just think it's his, British vulgar humor. But it can be perceived as such. And this is the important thing to realize. When you're on the internet, especially in a setting where there's thousands of people watching you, what you say matters, because people will take it in all kinds of different ways. Now, did Killer Pigeon, is he, this kind of misogynistic person? I don't believe that he is. I think that from my interaction with him, it's just his humor and nothing more. But it can be perceived as such. All right.
Attention to this in an effort to save this man's career before it's too late and he has to scatter. Depressing way for it all to go. Here's the truth. Brands don't care about you. You should never look for the approval from brands. The only people that are safe from this, again, Karen cancel culture are people that are funded by themselves. And also, it's important to know that if you are popular and people know you, you will be successful no matter what. It doesn't matter what anybody else is saying, or if people think that you're a bad person. There will always be a company that will give you money as long as you bring in an audience. That's the only thing that matters. And so never give in to these people, never rationalize with them. Making a your mom joke should not cause you to lose your sponsorship. But Microsoft and Red Bull don't care about you. They only want to use you as an actor for their own fucking careers.
Okay, that's a good point that he made, actually. So I agree. Like, big brands, the bigger the brand, the less they care about individual people. They care more about like sales. They care more about like numbers. It's a very like impersonal space. That's true. You should never try to make your personality about fitting within like a brand's values or whatever, because that's not necessarily going to be like something good. That's just good for their sales, right? But in this situation, it's not like he's becoming a brand ambassador. He's not like working with Red Bull or under Red Bull. He's just working for a Red Bull event, right? He's being hired. He's being paid a salary to be a host, which I think is different than like working under a brand or being sponsored. I don't even consider it a sponsorship. I consider like a contractorship, if anything. He's a contractor. He's got a job and he's being paid for it.
They want to make you into an advertisement.
Oh yeah. So another thing I want to talk about. So when it comes to like, you can say whatever you want as long as you have an audience is good enough. I don't really like this argument, because yeah, you can garner an audience saying and doing whatever. Because it's the internet, if you do the most heinous stuff on the internet, you're going to find people all over the world, even if they're a minority, that agree with you and think the same way, and so you'll garner an audience. But I don't think being a streamer is all about garnering an audience, and if you're making money, then it's good. There's no other criteria to it. I think that we have a lot of influence over people, which is a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. And it comes with a lot of responsibility, right? So I don't like the term influencer for like a random TikTok person or whatever, but like if you have like hundreds of thousands of people that watch you daily or yearly or whatever, you do influence them. You influence them how they speak, You influence them how they think, their politics, etc. You influence them a lot, and a lot more than people might think, because some people just look up to these content creators as more than just other people. They look up to them, and, they put them on a higher status. So if you're in a content creator space, you have that responsibility that you got to watch what you say and how you say it, because you will directly influence a group of people, potentially the next generation. So it's not just about like you can say whatever you want if you have an audience that's good enough. No, you can have an audience doing the wrong things. I would still say that that's not the right call at all. This is now further from the killer pigeon situation, because again, that's just a one comment. It's not his whole personality. But if you make your whole personality about something that is like morally incorrect, or is like just generally influencing people in a negative way, even if you garner an audience, I would think that that's a negative outcome, and not something that should be praised. It's not something that is good.
They want to make you into an advertisement for their product. They don't care about your values. They don't care about any values. The only thing that they care about is making as much money as possible. And so they always do this. That's not happened with Jinxie? Well, I don't know about, I have no idea what happened with Jinxie. I didn't even see that. So, Brand, yeah, they want you to be a puppet and a product. They don't want you to be a person. So really, my best advice is I totally stand with this guy, and I think he said nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. It's nothing bad at all. And anybody that's crying and complaining about it should just be disregarded as an NPC. These people don't really matter, and they're generally not even part of the community. And to the extent that you capitulate to them and you rationalize with them and explain things to them, things will only become worse for you, because they will control more and more of the space. I think that the best thing to do is to be as aggressively to aggressively push them out of your space as much as you can, because if you don't do that to them, they'll do it to you.
It's hard to say that they're not part of the community, because they're watching just like everybody else, right? So you can claim that these people are a minority and that Red Bull shouldn't care for the minority. But I don't know. I have trouble saying that as well, because I think even like the average person. Okay, I think it is a minority of people that want Killer Pigeon to lose his job over this comments. I think that's true. But I think it's not like there's two opinions. He has to lose his job or he can say whatever he wants. I think the average person is like, yeah, that joke was in poor taste. He shouldn't do that. It's unprofessional. Doesn't have to lose his job, though. I think the majority of people are in that space, or in that, that middle ground. So I don't think that these people are like out of the community. They're clearly watching like everybody else. We shouldn't give them more power, and allow them to cancel people on their own. And maybe Red Bull shouldn't take, these comments as being a lot of pressure that they have to let go of Killer Pigeon. But at the same time, you can't just say that they're not part of the community and they don't matter, because they are watching, and they do matter as viewers. They do matter to Red Bull, because they are, numbers that support an event. And so it does matter what you do say. I think it's still, again, unprofessional, and that does taint an event. Like, it's just a fact.
Yeah, good PR is making people think that you don't care. That's good PR. Well, at the end of the day, PR doesn't matter. It's not a real thing. It's just a thing that, again, fat, ugly, lonely women try to invent so they can henpeck and complain about other people. And guys do it too. It's not just women, but I think it's overwhelmingly a female behavior, where a lot of women get together, they try to enforce social compliance, and eventually anybody who doesn't do that, they participate in reputation destruction of that person. It is an extremely common thing. Everybody knows it's true. It's not politically correct to say this, but that doesn't mean that it's not correct to say this, and it is correct. It's obvious.
Okay, but that's fair enough, but that's not exactly what's happening right now. Like, it's not just about social compliance. This is about professionalism, right? Like, it's not like he just said this. If Killer Pigeon said this on his own, chat in a completely different context, and he was not like the host of this event, and it was not in the event's chat or whatnot, then okay, then sure, it's all about like the social compliance and whatnot. But if you say it in the chat of an event that you're a part of and that you're representing, that's hosted and sponsored by Red Bull and Microsoft, I feel like it's more of a problem of the workplace there, and not so much about like the social aspect of it.
So yeah. And it's a yo mama. Yeah, imagine trying to cancel somebody over a yo mama joke. It's pathetic. And I think that the gaming community and the internet community in general needs to be infinitely more loud and aggressive towards these people. These people are colonizers. They are coming into our spaces, trying to change our spaces to make them accommodate their stupid values. Their dumb fucking values that make no sense.
I love how he put himself as like the this is our spaces. He's like the king of gaming. Nothing gets by if Asmongold doesn't approve it. I mean, I see what he's saying. If you give these people an inch, they take a foot. And again, this is why I always said I'm not for cancel culture. I don't like someone making a mistake and then they lose their entire life because of it. I that's not a good way to build society. If that's how society should function, then we just have the death penalty for every crime. But no, we have a jail system, we have a rehabilitation system. People are allowed to make mistakes and try to become better from it. What we're seeing here is actually two extremes, really. Let me end with this as well. We're seeing one extreme where people are calling for Killer Pigeon to lose his job over the comments. And then we see the other extreme from Asmongold where, no, it doesn't matter what you say. These people don't matter. They're not real. They're NPCs. We should push them out of our spaces and you can say whatever you want. I don't like either of these. I want to take a middle ground. And the middle ground is like this. If you have to act professional if you're in a professional space. If you make a mistake and you say something that's vulgar, that's off-putting, that's disrespectful, you can own up to that. You can apologize and you can still keep your position, as a job or, as a host, because you're being hired to be a good host at the end of the day. So if you're still a good host, you keep that position. That makes sense to me. And you just work internally to make sure that you don't make those comments again. If you're unable to do that and you keep making the same mistake over and over again, well, then clearly that's just the person you are, and they can, then they can move on to find another host. But if you're a good host and you made one mistake, I believe that you should have, the chance to redeem yourself and the chance to grow from that. And I hate the other extreme of you can just say whatever you want, because I think that opens up a can of worms to where we start inciting violence. The community becomes extremely male dominant and completely pushes away all women whatsoever, which is just a net negative. You're, first of all, losing numbers. If your concern is numbers, you're losing the women audience, which despite being a minority, it still matters. And number two, it's just unhealthy. It's just, why would we want to push out an entire gender from our spaces just because we want to make jokes that are, at the end of the day, unprofessional and vulgar, right? So I think, we don't want to create a toxic environment where anything flies, and we don't want to have someone lose their entire life because they made one mistake. It actually reminds me of the gambling incident we had recently in AoE2. Like some content creators got involved in some, crypto gambling site or whatnot. Some other people spoke against it. The community did not like it at all. It was like super predatory. The community made that known, and then most of the streamers that got involved said, "Oh, listen, I didn't know it was that big of a deal, or didn't know it was illegal, or so on and so forth," and then they stepped away from it. Right? And I think that's like a super healthy thing for a community. The community spoke out against some predatory behavior, called out certain streamers engaging in that predatory behavior. Instead of calling for them to lose their jobs and to never stream again, they just said, hey, don't associate with that. The streamers listened, they didn't associate, and then we moved on, and that's a lesson for growth. Now, if these gambling sites come back to our scene, chances are the same streamers that got involved the first time will not get involved the second time. And I would say that's contributing in a positive way to the health of a community, especially a small community, small space online like Age of Empires. We're not that many people. We have a good, hundreds of thousands of fans and millions of viewers over years, but it's not like a mainstream community. So it's nice to have this kind of like healthy connection between like the viewers and the viewers supporting the streamers, but then also keeping the streamers honest so that the streamers don't engage themselves in bad practices or shady areas. So in this situation, I don't think it's much different for Killer Pigeon's situation. I think he's supposed to be a professional representation of this event. He made comments that were unprofessional. I think he should be given a chance to correct those. And I don't think we should jump to getting him fired. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Those are my ending thoughts. Now, to Killer Pigeon, I do wish him the best. I actually think that this is just he has like very vulgar and sexual humor. I don't think he is a bad person because he said these comments. I don't think that he should be fired. I think that he just has a problem, or maybe a problem, but I think he just has a habit of making these vulgar jokes. He's a British guy with his humor, and I think the mistake he made here is just using that humor that's meant for a casual social setting, and he used it in a professional setting. And I think that's the big mistake that he made. Again, it's not a mistake too big to come back from. So I really hope that the outcome of the situation is that he gets to keep his position, but he does, apologize for what he said, and he just agrees to not do it again in a professional setting. And that's it. We can move on like nothing ever happened. So I do hope that that's the final outcome. At the moment, though, unfortunately, it sounds like he did lose his job. And so if that doesn't get reverted and he still loses his job, then Killer Pigeon, I wish you the best. And I hope that this doesn't make you bitter. I hope you can continue working in Age of Empires for whatever you can do. And if you find some real work, in the real world, or some real work, if you find some work in the real world, then I wish you the best with that. And with that, we'll end the video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy a reaction video. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments about the situation and where you guys are feeling, where you guys are leaning, which direction. And if you want to stay in the center, that's completely fine. I think that's the more reasonable take at the end of the day. But anyway, take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.